Urafiki imekuwa mzito hivyo.
What happened? She was giving me milk.
You're live and I'm recording.
Okay, so I think we can start now. Good afternoon, everybody, and welcome to the fourth session of the Doctoral seminar series. My name is Dominique Samda. I'm a researcher at UMA and I'm hosting this seminar. You'll find a program for the remaining of the quarter on UMA's website and on our social media. We have invited speakers to reflect on the challenges and strategies of doctoral work with a particular focus on the turning points and critical experiences that shaped their doctoral journey. Our guest today is Dr. Job Mora. He's a postdoctoral research fellow at UMA, and he's part of the Knowledge Activism in Africa program at UMA. He completed his PhD at the Department of Media Studies at Wits. His research interests include digital media in Africa, activism and social justice, and digital cultures. He has taught journalism and media studies at Moy University and Wits University. He also worked as a researcher at the University of Sussex in the United Kingdom, and with the Kenyan government as well. He's an alumnus of the Next Generation of Social Sciences in Africa program of the Social Science Research Council in New York City in the US. Today, Dr. Mora will explain how to organize your time, how to organize your data and your references as a PhD student. He will speak for 10 to 15 minutes, and then we'll have a conversation for which I'm going to open the floor. So, Job, welcome to the seminar. And yes, this is your time, and we're all listening to you.
Thank you so much, Dominique. Can I share my screen?
You can, yes.
Yeah, thank you for that introduction, Dominique, and welcome everyone to this presentation. Let me start by mentioning something briefly about my PhD research. Also because what I'm going to talk about is mostly related to my background, as a media researcher in the humanities. So as Dominique said, I completed my PhD at Wits in the Department of Media Studies, the Faculty of Humanities. I was researching on social media in activism in Kenya, and I am currently involved in knowledge activism in Africa at HUMA. You will most likely find me in most of the social media platforms, mostly for research and academic purposes. Social media and social justice issues do fascinate me, especially how young people use social media to push back power. So this goes to new PhD students. It is important to do a research or to engage in research or on something that really interests you. And this obviously gives you a lot of peace. So what I'm going to talk about today is really not meant to be, expert advice, but a conversation on what I found to be useful in terms of, being organized, saving time, during my doctoral studies. I learned most of these things that I'm going to talk about on my own before during my PhD studies. And as I mentioned earlier, perhaps it will be of help to some of you who are currently enrolled in PhD studies. Now, completing a doctoral studies for me was, a very rewarding experience. After years of solitude and grueling research, doctoral studies gave me an opportunity to create knowledge, and gain skills, and prepare me to become an expert in my field of study. Doctoral studies gave me an opportunity to create knowledge, as I mentioned, and it was not all rosy. I had difficult moments, and I also did my best to enjoy the experience. Some of the most important wins that really helped me through the doctoral studies one of them was the commitment to work and discipline. I reminded myself every day that I could not do a PhD forever. And a good PhD is a completed PhD. Another thing that I really, had a win on is having a support system of family, friends, faculty, colleagues, and even online forums like PhD chats on Twitter, PhD chatter, and so on. All that support system was very important for me. Also having a supervisor as a close friend of mine, not him just being a supervisor, but being a close friend. Also, maintaining a good mental and physical health also helped me a lot to be at peace. Also, cultivating the virtue of being patient. PhD is, as you have heard, is a marathon, not really a sprint. Trusting the process and recognizing that PhD takes resilience, the ability to do one research topic over a number of years requires a lot of resilience. Being kind to myself and to people around me also gave me a lot of peace. Celebrating the tiny accomplishments that I made, not just in my PhD work, but also elsewhere in other activities that I engaged myself in as a PhD student. I had difficult moments as well. Imposter syndrome has always been a thing for me. Feeling insecure about my work. But even with that, I did manage to complete my PhD work. Now, let me go to the issues that I really need to talk about today. About organizing files and literature. Establishing a routine and a dedicated workspace free from any kind of distraction, with access to the right resources and tools is a golden rule and can really help you lay good groundwork for success. You are ultimately responsible for planning and management of your studies. No one is going to do it for you. Although it may seem obvious, it's not uncommon to find yourself suddenly, struggling to keep track of, trying to figure out things. As you might have realized by now, doctoral studies require a lot of reading. You will come across a lot of literature, and having a good organization of this literature will give you a great peace of mind and will help you save a lot of time. Therefore, it is important to learn to organize your files and folders. And in some way, this can be time-saving and give you a lot of peace, which is very much needed in PhD studies. I learned early enough to back up my work. Most of the universities now are subscribed to Office 365, which gives you about 1 terabyte of space and allows for cloud computing, saving your work while you write. Now, the advantage of using cloud computing, as you might well know, is that when you close your computer, for instance, or rather when you lose your computer, or when your computer clashes, you can easily recover your work without a lot of stressful moments. I lived in a city where I constantly got to worry about my safety, that is in job bag, where carrying my computer every time was not a safe thing to do. So instead of worrying about losing my work, or rather having maybe a broken computer, I shifted these worries to writing and conceptualizing my PhD research. Therefore, I cannot stress enough that you really need to learn how to back up your work quite often. Now, organizing your writing. After my undergraduate, I worked in a cyber cafe as an attendant. And some of my customers or graduate students who I found struggling with processing, or rather word processing in research. They struggled with knowing what to do with Microsoft Office, for instance. So I mastered the word processing skills, and somehow I made money out of it. And over time, I've used my skills to help many graduate students. Word processing, like putting page numbers, putting page breaks, automating table of contents, automating the list of tables and figures, automating abbreviations and acronyms may look easy, by just the mention of it, but they need some time to learn, and I found them to be very important in my doctoral work, research. Now, since writer's block is a thing for most academics, PhD students, and so on, when, for instance, you get a writer's block, you can decide to learn some of these skills, how to process your writing in a word processor, and it can be very helpful in the end. Now, organizing your references. As I mentioned, at PhD level, you're meant to do a lot of reading, and that means you will come across a lot of literature, and you will need to cite a lot of it in your work. In my own dissertation, I had over 200 citations in the end. That is a whole, like a whole chapter. And as a full-time PhD, a single chapter can take, close to 6 weeks to complete. So in my case, I learned early enough to use referencing software. I used Mendeley at master's level and Doctoral at PhD level, which were very, very helpful for me. Now, this referencing software can help you note the full details of literature that you come across every time. And it will save you a lot of time in the end. The worries that you have to put on referencing can be shifted to conceptualizing your PhD, your research. There are a number of these softwares, and you can choose either of them that would work for you. There's Zotero, there's Mendeley, there's EndNote, and there's even a referencing tab on Microsoft Word, which you can also use. So referencing software will basically help you to automate your citations and references. And some of them can even be installed on your browser. And they can also be installed on your word processor, such as MS Word. So at some point, Dominique, I'm sure will mention this later, there'll be a workshop on how to use some of this software. So you can keep tabs on the event section of Humor page. Now, let me conclude by saying that researching on a topic that interests you will save you time and energy. Maintaining a good support system can help you save time as well. Now, having an organized filing system can also save you time. Organizing and automating your references can also save you time and can give you a lot of peace. And also having a good technology, a technological device, can shift your focus, from it to your own writing and so on. Thank you so much.
I was muted. Thank you so much, Job, for your presentation and all your tips on organizing your data and your experience as a PhD student. As you mentioned, we are going to organize a workshop on reference management tools like Zotero and Mendeley, and you'll be one of the person facilitating the workshop. So thank you so much, and we are looking forward to this workshop. We have a lot of people in the audience today. I'm going to open the floor for you. There's the easiest way, I guess, for you to signal your intention to ask a question is to wave your hand with the little virtual hand, or you can also indicate your question in the chat if you're not in an environment that allow you to speak directly. So you have those two options. Maybe allow me to, excuse me, I'm just going to open the chat so I can see that. Okay. So one of my first questions for you is about the moment that where you, in a way, disorganize yourself. I don't know if that makes sense, but is there any moment in your thesis, in the process of preparing to write or writing, where you decided to kind of shake things up and to transform and find a new form for your data and your questions, your research question? Is there such moments when you had to reintroduce chaos in your data in order to be creative and productive? Oh, you're muted.
You're talking about, if I get your question well, you're talking about, experimenting on, various issues such as writing style, and even reading skills and so on. Yeah, there were those moments I did experiment. Some of them did work out very well. Some of them did not work out. For instance, one of the things that did not work out for me was the free writing skills. There's some people who are really good at it, getting a computer or getting your device and beginning to write freely or freestyle writing and then editing your work later on. That for me did not work out. What worked out for me was the fact that every sentence for me, counts. Anything that I write has to make some sense. So it is okay to experiment on those issues, and then you may find something that will work out very well for you. You're on mute, Dominic.
We have a question from Joyce. Joyce, would you like to ask your question for Job now?
Thank you very much, Job, for this wonderful platform that you're sharing with us. And my name is Joyce Wangare from United States International University, Kenya. And my question is largely twofold. The first one is on time management. You are quite a published scholar, I can see that. And while you did your studies, I assume that you also attended quite a number of conferences. So my question is, how can doctoral students balance their time between, attending all these conferences where you can get valuable feedback on your doctorate journey, as well as continuing with the core business, which is actually doing your research? Some people say conferences are not the core business, they are just extracurricular, but I think they are not. I think they're very valuable tools for students to learn and improve on their own work. I've gotten very good feedback from conferences. And so what was your experience, and how many total publications have you written, and were all those coming straight from conferences, or did you just write on your own? Then the other question is on the non-conventional media for disseminating information, which has now become center stage. We now have a lot of social media platforms that most of us even today got to know about this talk actually from social media. So my question there is, as you have written a lot of your papers, has it been useful for you to tweet about your papers and get a following, say, by doing YouTube videos? Or how have you used social media to leverage yourself as a scholar? And did you begin this after your doctorate, or did you have a chance to do social media dissemination even during your doctorate? I am a doctoral candidate of psychology, so I think I could sneak in one last question just on stress and burnout, because in my field, just like in many other fields, there's a very high attrition rate. Most doctorate students who begin do not complete. And in Kenya, the statistics are quite dire. We're talking almost half the students don't even finish, while they are the ones who started the program out of their own volition and choice. So how did you manage to have the so-called work-life balance or holistic well-being as you were in a very rigorous doctorate program? Thank you.
Thank you so much, Joyce, and great to meet you on this platform. Now, you talked about time management and attending conferences and how I was able to maintain a balance. I did get an opportunity for sure to attend so many conferences around the world. It was really, something that I was lucky to have. And one of the things that I kept reminding myself is that there was a life after PhD studies. And I knew that after PhD, there's something that was going to be needed, and that is publications. So, when you apply for a job after PhD, you'll find so many people laying out their PhD certificates, but what sets you aside? So what I realized was that what will set me aside was the outputs that I did make from my doctoral studies or during my doctoral studies, the publications. Yeah. So attending conferences counts. So when I recognized that fact, I did set aside time for that, for publications. I recognized that as a very important activity. Now, on publications, I have just a few of them, not many. I'm really not an established scholar. I'm still on the pathway of learning. But one of the things that has really helped me is to collaborate with other scholars in writing. And it can be a learning process, when you collaborate, for instance, with your supervisor to write something or somebody else. I did, for instance, collaborate with my head of department, Professor Ofoma, to write an article, which is going to be published later this year. So through that, I get to learn how to do these things, to learn how to publish. Now, on research dissemination, there are, nowadays the internet has given us the opportunity to disseminate our knowledge that we get to create in various ways, and one of them is through tweeting and so on. So throughout my PhD studies, for instance, I was active on Twitter, and I started long way, I think in 2009, to be active on social media. So I have used the platform to disseminate some of the things that I get to write. I have used blogs also to disseminate some of my writings. I've also written newspaper articles that also help me to disseminate some of the things that I get to write. On stress management and burnout, I mentioned in my presentation that it is important for doctoral students to have a very strong support system from their friends and from their family and from the various online forums that exist. So that is one of the ways that helped me to cope with the overwhelming work that comes with a PhD. Getting to talk to my friends, getting to talk to my family, and so on, and also. Cycling for me, worked out well during my doctoral studies. Thank you.
Thank you for your question and your answer, Job. Now we have a question from Innocent. Can you unmute yourself, please? I'm sorry, we can't hear you.
Can you hear me now?
Yes, we can. Thank you.
Thank you. I have like two questions to Job. Let me introduce myself. My name is Innocent Ingari. I'm a PhD student at Kenyatta University, currently looking at climate change and plant science. And to mention is that actually my defense is next week, and I'm hoping that things will go well. Job, my first question to you is that you mentioned that having a good relationship with your supervisor. I'm aware that most of the universities, most so in Kenya, you don't choose your supervisor, you are given your supervisor, or you are allocated a supervisor. If you're having that rugged relationship from onset, how can you handle that? And I know I've seen you're very active to share your position on the areas you've studied, and you've actually written articles and the blogs. Where do you find your voice from your research well felt? Is it through the social media? Is it on the blogs or through the publications? And thirdly, the question is, we have got different platforms where you can publish your papers. What influenced you to publish your papers where you were? Is it the scholars you read from? Is it your supervisor? Is it from your fellow PhD or doctoral students? Maybe you could clear that to me, and I look forward to more discussion from other members. Thank you.
Thank you so much, Innocent, for your question. You mentioned something to do with cultivating a good relationship with your supervisor. It is very important, but sometimes it can be difficult, and you will find that most of the time it is the relationship that really matters with your supervisor, and it can matter even on your completion date and so on. I think you have to be a friend. You have to go out and be a friend. rather than wait for somebody to come to you and be a friend to you. You can go out to them and be a friend to them. So try as much as possible to maybe maintain a very candid relationship with your supervisor. Be kind to each other. And I think things can shape up even when a supervisor is selected for you. In most instances, the selection is based on perhaps your research topic and what the supervisors are specialized on. Now, about research dissemination, that is sharing my research outputs and so on, and where I cultivated that the skill to write. Perhaps my literature background helped me in some way to begin to write. And through my vast reading during my doctoral studies, I really got to know, how to. I'm still learning the skill anyway, but I really got to know how to begin to jot down something and that's something to make sense. So it is a skill that you get to develop over time. It is not something that you learn in one go. So you have to keep on writing small stuff. You can write even the tweets and threads. You can have small blog posts, and they can matter a lot at the end of it. I hope I've answered your question, Vincent. Dominic, you're on mute.
Thank you so much, Job. We have a question from Kamla next. Kamla, would you mind unmuting yourself?
Yes, very well. Good afternoon from Ghana. So basically, just by way of introduction also, I have just started my PhD at Wits University, also in the Department of Media Studies. And so I'm excited that I'm having this conversation with you to share some thoughts about your experiences in that department. Now to my questions, a couple of them. I mean, starting off, before I put in an application, I had what I thought was an exciting topic that I was going to delve into. And so I submitted that in terms of my expression of interest, was approved, and I got my supervisor. And now at the stage of writing my proposal, in reviewing literature, I've seen that there are more exciting ideas that I could restructure my topic on. And so you read to a point, and by the way, I'm doing something on the use of social media for political campaigns in Ghana and Nigeria. And so along the line, some new ideas come up, and I'll reach out to my supervisor. Can I review my topic a little bit, or I should just stay put? How do you, at what stage do you know, okay, this is what I want to do, don't change it, just be in this lane and go, don't go and deviate from this point, because the more literature you read, the more there seems to be more, exciting ideas. That's the first one. Then the second one, how do you organize your literature as you read along? Because I am reading lots of literature. Should I be taking notes, or I just do my literature review as I go along in terms of the readings, or how do I manage the literature I read? Because sometimes I read a document and the next 2-3 days I've forgotten the main content there. So how do you organize all of that? Then the last one would be, especially in the research which you have done, where would you recommend as a hub to getting lots of research papers which you could use for your review? Are there some websites or resources out there that you don't have to go pay to get those materials from for your easy review? Maybe finally, as to whether you'll be kind enough to share presentations with us, so that once in a while we could read and to serve as a motivation for us that, hey, we are on the journey and one day we'll get to where you have gotten to. Thank you.
Thank you so much, Komla, for your questions. This presentation is being recorded live, so it's going to be available on Facebook page. Now, about changing ideas and having new ideas coming up every time when you read. One of the things that I learned is that if your research topic or your research idea does not change, then there's something wrong. You need to be flexible enough in your research to accommodate new research ideas. But also you have to recognize the fact that this changing cannot go on for a long time. It has to stop at some point. So if you get an idea that is, like good enough to get your PhD, just fly with it, just go with it. You don't have to find something very complicated. Students in, for instance, social sciences and humanities and so on, at this level, you are likely not to change the world. You're not likely to change the world. So just do something that is very doable. Something a little bit complicated for a PhD, but something that you're comfortable enough to, to sail through your PhD studies. Now, organizing literature, as I mentioned, you'll come across a lot of literature in your doctoral studies, and it is good that you get to have a way of, organizing them. So, in my case, what worked out well for me was using a software called NVivo. NVivo helps you to group your research into several themes. So it became easy for me in such a way that I didn't have to go back every time to refer to the notes, or rather to the articles that I got to read. So I just went straight to my very well laid, thematically well laid notes on NVivo, and that worked out well for me. So it is something that you can get maybe to find out or to explore on how to use NVivo for literature review. And this applies mostly to those who are in social sciences and humanities. Now, on where to find literature, in my case, being a media scholar, a lot changes within a very short time. Within a few years, new technology has come up, new ideas on research and so on have come up. So Google Scholar for me was like the first point of reference, going there to look for latest literature and refining that literature according to, the number of, the period. Such that in my case, I didn't want to look at something that was very, very old, maybe over 10 years, because within 10 years, a lot has changed in the area of media studies. Yeah, and I think that is my brief answer to that.
Thank you, Job. And I, just to add that, in the idea of organizing yourself, there's certainly something about containment of all the abundance of data that you have, and idea and desire to pursue like different directions. And I think the desire to change subject is very common and kind of the nightmare of any supervisors. That's also where you have to lean on your advisor to find the strength to to stay on the same line and to finally pursue your PhD. And as Job, you said, I love that line. A good PhD is a completed PhD. I think it's a great reminder that we have to complete and not just be on the path and the journey to complete it. Okay, we have a question from Sanya. Sanya, do you want to, or are you able to unmute yourself?
Thank you so much, Dominic. Thank you. And thank you also to Job for such a lucid presentation. Thank you. My question relates to the question of institutions. You completed your studies at Wits, Now, what was your relationship? Because an institutions, are bureaucracies manned by human beings. Some are excellent, some are indifferent, some are outright hostile. It depends. And in the various institutions, you have various environments, right? So I wanted to ask, what was your personal experience there? Was fortunately you've answered the question about the support of your supervisor, that he was very supportive. But what was your relationship with your institution? And what challenges did you meet or did you face? And how did you overcome them?
Okay, thank you, Sanya, for that question. Yeah, for sure, the environment that you get to study in, the institutions that we get to attend, can sometimes, shape our doctoral studies in various ways. So for me, being being a foreign student in South Africa, I had a number of challenges at the start of it. Trying to settle into a new environment was a bit challenging. Getting to learn things, and a new culture altogether in South Africa was somehow challenging and exciting for me. So I would say I really had, in the end of it, I had a good experience. I got a chance to work as a teaching assistant in the Department of Media Studies, where I got to interact a lot with the faculty in the department, and I made quite a number of friends still in the department and in the university at large. I also belonged to the Humanities Graduate Center. I was a member there and an active member as well. So that environment also helped me, to cope, as a doctoral student in WITS. And another thing that I got to engage myself that was like very exciting was getting to learn isiZulu. I attended classes on isiZulu at WITS Language School, which also helped me to blend with the environment, with the people around Johannesburg, for instance, those within and outside the institution. So yeah, being a student in a foreign country can be challenging. Every time, for instance, in Johannesburg, getting to worry about your safety. But as time goes, you get to learn some of these things on how to maneuver through such large cities.
Thank you, Job, for your answer. I'm looking at the chat at the moment, and I see that there's a couple of questions here that we might want to address. I think first there's Lorna who is asking if there is any specific tools for data management. I guess that you would recommend or that you could comment. You mentioned 2 of them or 3. Can you maybe like say a little more on that, on their merits, their differences, and what you would want to say about them, and maybe if there's some that you haven't mentioned that you think that would be available and interesting for the audience.
Okay. On data management softwares, there are quite a number depending on your field of study. For instance, those in quantitative would find quantitative studies would find SPSS, for instance, and MATLAB and so on being very, very important for them. But for me as a qualitative researcher, data management software like NVivo, like Atlas. Atlas also is one of the other, data management software that you can get to explore. NVivo is, some institutions have subscription to NVivo, others don't have. So perhaps it's important that you get to check with your library whether they have access to NVivo. Zotero is a very good open source referencing and data management software that I found, quite better than Mendeley. Thank you, Dominic.
Thank you. Yeah, and you mentioned, I think, that you switched like from your master research to the, okay, you came to Zotero a second. Okay. I think there was also, okay, very quick question. There was somebody asked you how long that did it take you to write your PhD? Which is kind of asking the age of somebody. Can be a little personal, but if you'd like to answer, you can say how long it took you.
Well, I enrolled in, South Africa has very short periods of doing PhD, unlike other countries. Minimum is 3 years, but for me, I did take 4 years.
Okay. Okay. Which is very, it's a short time, it took me longer. Okay, so there's Annika. Annika is asking, she's saying, I'm just starting off my PhD journey. Can you refer me to resources, or can you share resources to assist me with kickstart this journey?
Sorry, I didn't get that one.
So could you refer me, so Annika is asking, to resources, or can you share resources to assist me with kickstart this journey? So do you have, can you recommend like resources? I know you mentioned a few of them, but is there anything else that you would recommend to, a very like young candidate in their journey?
Okay. Now, for most of the institutions, they have the institutional repositories. That can be like the first, call for reference. You can check out your institutional repositories, and also Google Scholar can also help you a lot in finding some of the good literature.
Okay, thank you. One of the questions that I want to ask you, and for a candidate that is like just at the beginning of their adventure.
Sorry.
When do you think it's a good moment to start getting organized? Because you can say, oh, I don't have much, I'm just starting, I'm reading, I've read like 1 book, 3 articles. So when should I start? When should I start managing my references? When should I start organizing my folder? Like when does it make sense? Does it make sense to organize yourself when you have nothing?
That's a very good question, Dominique. But I really do think that it's very nice to to start early enough, even when you're at the confusion stage, and then you can build it up, slowly by slowly. Yeah, I think starting early enough, even at your state of confusion, to start creating folders here and there, it's still, or rather, I would really recommend that.
Yeah, no, thank you. And something also that we can share and tell me if you agree is that like organizing your PhD is not something that you do like, in addition to your research work. It's not something that you do in addition to like asking research question or conceptualizing your work. This is like extreme. Those are, kind of the same thing. Like when you create folders and when you create section, and that you organize also your work, and you enable yourself to think really, and to create what's going to be the architecture and the skeleton of your dissertation.
Yeah, for sure. And you'll realize that when you have a very good organized system from the word go, it will help you to think and to relate things, which can also help you to build up your, or rather conceptualize your ideas.
Yeah. Thank you. Do we have other questions? I don't see hands in the audience. I'm looking at the chat to see if I've missed anything. We have a comment from Peter who is saying, thanks Job for the presentation. Updating one's literature is actually very critical, and every month new insight or available on Google Scholar. And yeah, so Google Scholar is a powerful tool that is authentic and currently present articles according to year of publication and also from top tier journals. Yeah, very true. There's a cheeky, I think there's a cheeky question from Amina, our colleague, that is asking if you would go for a second PhD. That's cheeky.
Now, well, I think it depends with your interest and your goals, whether to go for a second PhD or not. Yeah, this world is just so full of so many possibilities. Human beings can, stretch themselves to whichever limit that they want. So if you feel like, going for a second PhD is a thing for you, you can do it.
But you personally, you would not?
No, for me right now, I want to concentrate on other things, creating knowledge in other ways rather than being a PhD student.
Yeah. And let's remember also that like PhD, so there's plenty of people that have 2 PhDs, like not plenty, but there are scholars who have 2 PhD, and I don't want to say anything negative about that. But let's remember also that PhD, so it's a way to learn research, right? To learn how to be a researcher. So the idea is that once you have a PhD, you graduate to be like, a doctor, and you can do, conduct whatever research project you want without the supervision of a supervisor. You can have mentors, and you have peers, and you have the scientific community that is around you, but you've graduated and you're free. So that's what's good about it. Okay, we have a question from Innocent. Innocent, do you want to unmute yourself?
Yeah, can you hear me now?
Yes.
Sorry, I asked the question earlier, but as the discussion goes on, it's becoming very interesting. I just have a curious question to Dr. Job. Do you feel content with your PhD? And again, what I need to ask you is that now that you've said that you do want really to engage into a second PhD, now you're focused into creating knowledge. Is that knowledge created through within the academia line, or you want to do other outreach activities, maybe trying to fundraise for project where you can mentor other young upcoming scholars?
Okay, yeah. With regards to my PhD, I think I did try to do a good job. I know it was not a perfect job, but it was enough to give me a PhD. And with regards to my other engagements going forward after PhD, right now I'm involved in a project on knowledge activism in Africa. We are looking at things to do with publishing and research disseminations, the issues in research, in publishing and research dissemination in Africa. I'm sure most of you know that that has been an issue for a very long time. So I'm engaged in that project so that we can get to find solutions to some of those issues, which can be able to help scholars from various levels, beginning PhD levels, master's levels, and a number of other scholars. Yeah.
Thank you, Job. We have a question from Joyce. Joyce?
All right, yeah. So please tell us more about the knowledge activism, the one you just mentioned, and how we can be involved more closely with the initiative. Do you have a platform? Are you enlisting any of us to join you? There is truly a gap in the global South with us not owning our voice. I think the gentleman who spoke before me said it very well. We researchers in this part of the world do not own our voice in our work, and we prefer to import a lot of the theories and philosophies for what we do. So to start to influence each other by even citing each other as African scholars would be a good place to start. So how can we follow you online, offline, and everywhere? Thank you.
Thank you, Joyce. Now, the Knowledge Activism project is hosted at the Institute for Humanities in Africa at the University of Cape Town. And the project, as I mentioned, is looking at the issues that are affecting scholarly publication in scholarly publishing and research dissemination in Africa. And you mentioned some of the issues that are really affecting us, in the global South. So in the first year of this project, we are looking at those issues. We are mapping them according to the regions in Africa, in Northern Africa, Southern Africa, Eastern Africa, which I am in charge of, and Western Africa. So after mapping all those issues, we shall begin to do interventions, supporting these individuals or institutions that are involved in knowledge production in Africa, so that we can get to strengthen them. You can get more updates about this on the Institute of Humanities in Africa website. We shall be having a number of activities such as podcasts, research outputs in form of articles, in form of op-eds, and so on. So I'm online. I'm on Twitter mostly. So and Huma is also on Twitter. So we shall be posting a lot of updates on that platform.
Thank you, Job. There's interest in the chat for your dissertation. Is it published? Is it online? Where can the audience find your dissertation work?
Okay. Actually, I did check this morning whether my PhD thesis is available on the WITS Wired Space, but it's not available yet. But if you're really interested in having a look at it, I can share it on email. You can drop your email and I'll send it to you.
Okay, thank you. So email Job if you want to have the dissertation, and also other information. I can say there's renewed interest for the workshop on data management. So that's we are glad, and we are here to also be of be of service and be useful to the community of African PhD doctoral candidates. So that's great. We have 2 more minutes, so it's time for me to thank you, Job, for your presentation, your participation, your responses. Thank you to the audience for joining us today. We generally meet every other week at the UMA Doctoral Seminar Series. And next week, no, not next week, in 2 weeks, on May 5th, we're going to have, I think, an amazing conversation on research ethics. I think it's an important conversation that we can have again and again, but we'll have this one on May 5th with Dr. Ibrahima Nyang. So please join us for this occasion as well. And, you know, for every other ones, I think we have important and great conversation about doctorate degrees and obstacle difficulties, and also all of the strategies that we have to overcome them. So thank you so much, everybody. And of course, please.
Yeah, I would like to thank everyone who participated. It's very nice to see such a huge number of people who are either interested in PhD or doing PhD. You know, I would want to thank those from Strathmore University, from Moore University, my former colleagues at Wits University, and my Twitter friends, you know, who are also many here. And I hope you did get to learn something from this presentation.
Thank you so much. We're going to end the recording now. Thank you very much.